Hi, everybody. Welcome to the AI Rebels, formerly Revolution podcast. We are now the AI Rebels podcast, and we're excited to announce the first formal guest, part of the AI Rebels podcast, Lodo Benvenuti. And he's building a very exciting tool that we're going to talk about. But first, Lodo, can you give us a quick summary of who you are, what you're doing, your path to AI, and what you're working on now?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on. My name is Lodovico, of course, for an English-speaking audience, it's just Lodo. I'm Italian, and actually, I started off with not actually studying computer science. I studied mathematical logic in England at the University of Cambridge, and then I went on to do a master's in data science and business. But like since I was like my first year of university, I actually followed a course on Coursera just because during COVID, and um, and I discovered Python. So I actually have been programming just for the last 5 years and 4 years, and but yeah, then I fell in love, and that's just essentially what I've been doing since then. And right now, I'm working on technology for the property management industry. So that's short-term rentals, so apartments on Airbnb, Booking.com, and these kinds of OTAs, online travel agencies. And the tool that I'm developing right now is a tool to automate customer interaction. So when guests come to the apartment, they often have to ask information, check-in information, information about the apartment, and this tool automates these responses based on the information that the property manager provides. So this is like the basic function of the tool. Of course, what I'm aiming to build is actually quite more complex. Already now, it's not just answering basic questions. It's already helping guests solve maintenance issues. So for instance, if the lights goes out, it can help him, guide him step by step, and like what the potential causes might be and what the potential resolutions for that specific cause may be. And it can also serve as a sales agent. So for instance, let's say you come to Milan, my city, and you come for a business meeting. I see that you have your check-in at 8 o'clock. Then I might ask you, okay, do you want a transfer service from the airport to the apartment? Or I could ask you, well, would you want to have food ready in the apartment itself? So this can help property managers boost their revenues without actually having to do any work. So yeah, this is essentially the concept behind GuestAI. Of course, there are other more technical automations that are more interesting for a property manager, less so for a general audience. So for instance, automating guest answering reviews based on sentiment analysis of the review itself, automating information, the collection of apartment information. So when you go into the apartment, you just have to film the apartment, and it automatically inserts certain fields. These are things that like they're not quite flashy, maybe, but they're very useful for our for property managers.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
especially
go ahead.
sounds like it's adding a lot of value. Jake, go ahead and ask your question because mine is more technical.
I was just going to ask where this idea came from. Like, do you have history with this, like the online travel space, or how did you get plugged in here?
Unfortunately, yes. So no, because actually the fun thing was that I was selling this product to the biggest property manager here in Italy, and he was like looking at me and was like, "Why are you in this industry? Like this is like such a terrible industry to be in. Like why are you working in this industry?" And I was like, "Life. I mean, so what happened is that during COVID, actually while I was learning how to program, because my parents are quite old, I rented out an apartment in Milan. I was, during the summer holidays from university, I came back to Milan, but I wanted, some independence to be able to see my friends and not have to, uh, pass on COVID to my parents, right? So I rented out an apartment, but then in August I left Milan to go on holiday, and I was like, why should I leave the apartment empty just for a whole month? Why not rent it out on Airbnb? So I asked the owner if I could do this, and he allowed me to do it. And we saw that the returns were way higher than like average long-term rentals. So we were like, okay, so do you want me to continue doing this? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I was like, maybe I could get another client. And I actually texted all like my family friends and stuff like that, everyone. I was really debating on whether to text my ex-girlfriend's mother just because she had a house. I was like,
really push
should I
it.
do this? Is this ethical? But then I did. And she was like, oh, maybe I will. It might happen. But then we completely forgot that I had texted her, right? And 3 months after, she called me. And imagine like getting a call from your ex-girlfriend's mother. And I was like, either she's dead or like, what's happening? Why is she calling me? I was like super scared. And she answered, and I answered, and she was like, I have this friend that has a house and she wants to rent it out on Airbnb. So could you help her? And so that got us to 2 apartments, and then it just grew. And now we have over 60 apartments with like roughly $1 million in revenues. And so it just escalated this way. And because of that, I had to, it taught me a lot. I have to say, like, on how to start a company. It was the first real company that I started. And because of this, then I started developing technology for our team just to streamline processes and stuff like that. And this just came natural.
That's fascinating. And I think that's a common pattern we're seeing, which speaks to the power of AI. It's like people are taking what they're familiar with and then just saying, hey, what can I do with AI here? Oh, look at these holes. Look at these pain points. I can address those very efficiently and quickly with AI. And you've done it solo. You've built this tool in a month, I think you said, right?
Yeah. I've been building tools for the property management world for like 4 months now. So we have another non-AI tool that helps with self check-ins. So it's like an automatic relay that with your phone you just press a button and it opens the door for you. And that's quite a bestseller for us right now. And that I developed with another partner. But the AI part I developed solo in the last month. But yeah, it's not that hard. Like, I'm quite obsessed when I start programming. I just like when I say a month, it's like I do like maybe 60 hours a week, 70 hours of just pure programming. So it's not really a month. But there's still a lot that can be done, and I'm still at the start, especially because I am not. I'm more of a machine learning engineer. I'm not really a front end developer. People who are data scientists or machine learning engineer would know Streamlit. So a lot of what I build then goes like all my earlier projects were all built on Streamlit. But when you have to sell something, you can't build it on Streamlit. So I had to use Vue and Nux.js to server the front end. It was such a pain, but it was fun. I learned something new, but it was such a pain.
I actually really like Vue. I didn't at first, but it really grew on me.
If you're a front-end developer, it is amazing. Just it's so easy compared to even just React. It's way easier.
Yeah.
But if you're not a front-end developer and you have to, when you're like a machine learning engineer, you used to, of course, experimenting and stuff like that. But the results are like, at least for me, like emotionally, they seem with a bigger impact. Of course, they're not really so, because like front ends are UI is of fundamental importance. But like being a machine learning engineer, you tend to see more impact in that rather than. And so like when I have to, just to rehash the old meme, like center div, that doesn't seem to be too stimulating to me, of course. But I do realize that there's like a hidden art behind like building a proper front end that I certainly don't have. But
And something I want to point out here is like the current generation of AI tools are unbelievable compared to what came even just immediately previous to it. Like it used to be like a tool that you're describing, like and building out with GuestAI, like that would have taken, probably a year to gather all the training material, to label all the data, to then train the model, deploy the model, test the model. And now it's like we have such broadly capable models. Like you can throw something out in a weekend that would have taken, a couple months before the advent of GPT 3.5. It's
absolutely,
mind blowing.
absolutely. And also, like me being, I've always been into NLP, so natural language processing, using libraries such as NLTK, but especially Spacey. And when you used to do like all these things used to be named entity recognition mainly, because like when you want to extract structured data from unstructured data, so natural language, you usually use a sort of like either a classifier, so you use a BERT to classify. A BERT is another transformer based model to classify a certain or either a multi-label classifier or just a simple classifier. Or the more common approach is using a name entity recognition. And like the amount of crazy labeling you had to do, and compared to now where you can just like create your own data set through an LLM, or just use the LLM itself to do name entity recognition for you. And it's just crazy. I used to do the same type of projects before, and they were so long to get the model to work kind of properly. Yeah, it is incredible. It is quite incredible.
Yeah.
I wish I had that meme to pull up about like I don't remember exactly how it goes, but just the joke about companies starting AI enterprises and then the AI just never pans out. Like that's flipped on its head now. Like it's so fast to get actionable results.
Yeah.
Also, just like it's so easy to move from an idea to an MVP just by yourself that can actually be sold, and that's something that I honestly didn't think that possible. I used to do projects, I used to build stuff, but they were all like just things for my amusement, or just I would put online just to see how people would use them, but they weren't actually sold. Like they weren't MVPs. So this is like the first solo thing that with AI that I've done and brought to an MVP. Also, I think that I'll do some publicity to GitHub, and like GitHub Copilot it changed my life. I think that it's just incredible. Like it's even better than like just ChatGPT or any like of these chat-based models, because of course like the like Codium or all these like chat-based models, they're very useful to if you have a problem with code and you want to, instead of going on to the documentation, you just ask ChatGPT and it can answer quite well. But actually, when you're a programmer, the thing that slows you down the most is typing. And GitHub Copilot eliminates typing. I literally just type maybe 5% of my code right now. It's so, and you just like type
That's
3
amazing.
words. You already have like the tab completion through VS Code. And I used to remember when it didn't have that. Like it was way less advanced, like just 4 years ago. So that already changed a lot. Like this completion now with auto completion with GitHub Copilot, it's just you're literally just it's like the AI is reading your mind, and it's just incredible. It's just reading your mind, and it's amazing.
On a couple episodes ago. Oh, go ahead, Spence.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say a couple episodes ago, we had Ben Nash on, and he also raved about GitHub Copilot. Sounds like it's kind of a game changer in the industry.
Yeah.
Does it still like to insert really random comments? I haven't used it in a while. I got used to using ChatGPT because for whatever reason, that workflow works better for me of going to ChatGPT and planning out my code and writing it there and then copying it over and bug, troubleshooting all that. But what I remember about GitHub Copilot when I tried it in beta was like tabbing on comments, and it would just come up with like increasingly random things to say. Does it still do that?
Yeah, so I think that there are some like issues. It's not very intelligent. So it can do all the basic stuff. It's not as intelligent as ChatGPT. So like if you really want to hash some ideas out, or maybe debug some code, if you're having problems, you would always have to resort to ChatGPT. And yeah, and also like if you ask it like to actually write a function for you, it doesn't really do that quite well. The cool thing, like I use it just like to, especially in data science, and like when you have so much, you're using pandas a lot and stuff like that, or even NumPy. There's a lot of like simple boilerplate that you have to do, just like even the column name, right? And the fact that it already understands what you're doing, and it has the whole line just for that data manipulation. It's so easy to write. Like even a first year undergrad could write that, but you still have to write it. Usually you would still have to write it. Now it's just, it goes. That's a game changer for me. I also agree, like in my workflow, I usually have on one part, like Google Chrome with ChatGPT open. I used to just use ChatGPT, but then like my friends still told me that I had to use this tool, and I actually started using it, and I got so frustrated because it wasn't working well for me. But then once you get used to the new workflow, then it does really change your life. And you go just so much faster, faster.
You just touched on something that I wanted to highlight too as well, which is that like some of these tools do require like you see people online and elsewhere and talk to people in real life, and they get disappointed by ChatGPT or Copilot not 100% reading their mind, and I think that people are what's the word, less respectful of these tools than they should be, in the sense that they underestimate the changes that they have to make to their own workflow for Copilot to work with them. Like I personally never got to a point where I felt like I had a good workflow for Copilot, and so I kind of gave up on it, but I should check it out again. But yeah, just like the small adjustments in our workflows are going to be really interesting to watch and keep track of over the next few years, and see how the nature of our work itself changes due to AI.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like you said, like it's amazing that we have such good code auto completion now, that a lot of the time, like as long as you're writing something that's fairly within the normal distribution, like you can just tab and get 80% of what you need, and then the other 20% you can figure out yourself. It's incredible.
Yeah, and also I think that two things in what you just said. On the last point, I think that it's also quite a sanity check on your code. Like if it can't autocomplete, then probably there's something that you're writing not like it's not understandable. And if an AI can't understand it, that means that a human won't understand it as well. So usually when I see that it's like not really understanding what I'm trying to do, I'm like, okay, let me go back. Is the structure a sensible structure? Because when you're like a solo entrepreneur, or in general, like when you're either programming solo or even in a small team, you don't have those company guidelines where you say, okay, any controller has to go in this section, and then a service has to go there, and the services have to do just one task, and then the utils go here, and you end up deciding the overall structure yourself, and then iterating, you go and change it and stuff like that. So it's it's quite easy to write messy code. So I actually use Copilot to remain on track, and maybe go back, rewrite the code, and then refactor something, and so that then it can actually understand. And then on the other point you said, on people not understanding, like getting quite upset and saying, oh well, but it doesn't really work. I think that like some people don't really understand, like like understanding where where autoregressive LLMs come from really helps understanding what these tools are meant to be. So these tools are meant to, firstly encode text, so create really dense embeddings that are context aware, so that they have attention to the different parts of the different tokens in the input, and then produce based on that some sensible response. So essentially, we're talking about natural language processing. Of course, you have emergent properties such as reasoning and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you see it as a natural language processing tool and you harness that aspect of it, then I think that you can't get upset, because it's just incredible how well it understands natural language. Again, like when I'm building, for instance, for GuestAI, you don't want it to necessarily do the reasoning for you. The least reasoning that is done by an AI, the better. I mean, if you can write an algorithm, just write an algorithm. Like, algorithms are more precise; they're 100% precise. The more prompt engineering can be done through systems like DSPy, or as you already had, representation injection, then the better. I mean, the more you can make the system behave in a mathematical way, the better. What it has to, like, its main function should always be that of processing language or whatever media that you send it its way.
This is slightly tangential, but did you read the Claude paper that Anthropic released a couple days ago?
Actually, no.
Super interesting.
Maybe
I still need to read the full thing, but it covered a little bit of the ground that representation engineering does. They were able to identify different neurons for different features. So they found a neuron within Claude, and I might be butchering this slightly, but if I remember right, it was literally a neuron for writing bugs inside of code. And when they got rid of that neuron, the code that Claude put out was like, some 10% better or something like that, like 15% fewer bugs. Like, it's super funny, like the silly little things that show up in language models like that. Like, who would have thought that the model develops like an independent neuron just for making bugs in code?
Yeah, it's like, this is what humans do, so I'll do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, they do that? Okay, I'll write bugs too.
That's easy. I'll throw something in.
Yeah, I've seen something similar, but it's more like how to make a language model forget something. So it's like inverse certain like learning things. Like, if you have to like make it forget some sensible data or privacy, like private data, then there's like some stuff. But I haven't seen that. I think I've seen a post on LinkedIn, but I actually haven't gotten the chance to read it. I'm not even sure if it's the same one, but yeah, I saw one on. By the way, like, how do you usually get your information? Because for me, like, the main thing is I get the Medium newsletter in the morning, and it's just like so precise on what I'm like currently obsessing over, and I just go on, and it's incredible, because like Medium is just so good at like recommending posts to you, like articles to you, because it understands like what I want. And so like I always see this and I'm like, I can't read all of these. This would take me 2 hours. I have to work. Like, I can't do this. So like, okay, I have to choose 3. Okay, which ones are going to be the most impactful? Like, then you choose the wrong one, and it's something you already know, and you're like, I wasted some time. But so what are you guys using as
I think
as
I'm kind of similar as you, Lodo, where I subscribe to like several newsletters. Medium, AI tools is one that I like. They kind of highlight upcoming AI tools that are being built or used, or things like that. So I like the newsletters that then reference out to like the sources. I kind of and then start there and build out to
follow
editing.
a bunch of nerds on Twitter who are also into AI.
Twitter's also very good.
So there's one account, Akaliq, I think that's how you say his name, AKHALIQ, and he puts out once a day, puts out like a bunch of tweets with like just relevant interesting papers that he found on archive. And then, I just kind of keep my ear to the ground of what random anime profile picture accounts on Twitter are interested in. And oftentimes what they're interested in is really cool and interesting.
Yeah. And the cutting edge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Like,
Yeah,
see a
but
lot of the
I also feel like the main problem I have with like AI tools, not the AI tools, like the consumer based like AI tools, those are quite cool, but like the ones aimed at developers, is that it's so, especially like frameworks and libraries, and is that it's so stressful to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
Just because every time there's like a post on, like, we don't really use Twitter in Italy. I sometimes go on it, but I'm like the only one just because I'm so US oriented. But
Yeah.
I like LinkedIn. We use a lot of like LinkedIn, and at least I sometimes end up like doom scrolling there, and then there's like always like these posters saying like, forget, I don't know, llama index. Now there's this new
Oh, yeah.
llama index or whatever, and it's just like this.
It changes so fast.
Yeah, and it's so
yeah.
stressful. And you're
Yeah.
always like there, and you're like, oh, I'm just being a boomer. I'm using the wrong tools. And then also like with LangChain, I remember the first time I used LangChain, it was like so basic. It was like, I remember like actually like the first time they didn't even have their own Pydantic validation model. They used Core, which is like this really bad library. I'm like, no offense, I hope no one like developed Core will ever listen to this podcast, but it's such a bad like I could have written something better, and it worked so bad. It had like, at the end of the day, I just went on the source code and rewrote it myself, and it's incredible how big now LangChain is with LangServe. Well, LangServe is just like a fast API wrapper, but still, it's quite cool. Especially Langsmith. Langsmith is something that is like a game changer, a real game changer in the industry, and also like they're deprecating everything every time. So like you're building stuff, and then they're like, no, we don't use this anymore. And yeah, so that is quite like keeping up with these frameworks.
Yeah, it's challenging to keep up with everything. Yeah, no question. Which is like speaks to, like, that's amazing. I love that because that means it's going so fast. But as like an individual, it's really hard to keep pace with this because it's in every industry. It's like, it's not like you have to keep pace with just like this industry. It's like, no, AI is now everywhere. Tools are being developed everywhere, and it's massive. So
yeah,
it's challenging.
And on the one side, like, of course, like there is a huge demand, right? And sometimes like my friends are making fun of me. They're like saying like how I randomly chose this job, and it just exploded in my hands. Like I started doing this in 2019, 2020 actually. Yeah, then it exploded in 2022, and
Wow.
And that there's a luck factor there, but at the same time, I remember when I was starting, it was like way less stuff, so it was like more. It felt like a smaller niche. Like it felt like something. It was already like quite famous, like data science, and it was already like the hottest topic, especially in America. But it was still slightly more niche. Nowadays, like because everyone is doing that, you just see so much people doing so many things, and you feel like you're always like behind, and you have to read that other paper that just came out, and you have to read that the new library, you have to look at that documentation, you have to look at those things and stuff like that, right? So
I'm curious, Lodo, just kind of on this that you're talking about. Someone asked me this the other day, and at first I was like, no way, not at all. But I've just been thinking about it. Is there any, because obviously there's like this microscope on AI right now. It's just exploding in use cases and popularity. Is there any way the impact, and like everyone thinks it's going to change everything. Is there any way you think in your machine learning expertise, everything, is it overhyped at all? Someone asked me that. They're like, is this just like overhyped? Like, is this really going to do what people say it's going to do?
Well, it really depends what you mean. Like the thing is, because AI nowadays we don't really know what the actual reference of AI actually is. Like, what do you mean by AI? Is AI, because it used to be machine learning and deep learning, right? It was like this general term for, you used to have like a distinction between deep learning and machine learning, and then AI was just like this overall category. And but nowadays we just tend to mean causal autoregressive LLMs, right? So if the question is, do I think that there might be some overhype on causal autoregressive LLMs? Yes, I do think that that might be the case. But overall, like, I don't think that AI is overhyped. I mean, two things. Maybe firstly, autoregressive LLMs might not be the final architecture, and I don't think like a lot of people also like there's a lot of advocates saying that maybe diffusion is actually the way forward to build a world model and an AGI. Of course, like if you listen to Sam Altman, I think that he is quite dedicated to autoregressive LLMs. But that's one thing, and then the second thing is clearly the AI market, so the AI business, like the huge surge of investments on AI might be slightly hyped. So it's a slightly like what I think is happening is a new paradigm shift. We had it with the first industrial revolution, so locomotives. We had it with the second one. We had it with internet, of course, and now we have it with AI, right? And just with internet, you have this extreme hype on new technology, and then you have the dot-com bubble.
Right.
I'm not sure whether this is actually going to happen. I'm not a finance expert, but certainly you do feel that there is this kind of urgency of like having to invest in this, and maybe sometimes these investments are done slightly without too much of a thought behind it. But I do think that we are in a new paradigm shift, and because of that, just as in the past, like when they invented the locomotive, the first things that had to be done were making better locomotives, so to have trains go faster, and then build railroads. In Europe, of course, we have so many railroads. We don't have that many in America as for the, but like we're full of railroads, and so that's the infrastructure. Then we had the telephone, and then you had to build all the telecommunication infrastructure. Then the internet. There's the making the internet faster, so actually building a system that makes not only like the connection faster, but also the search faster. So search engines were the first huge companies to emerge, Yahoo, and then of course Google, and of course like the infrastructure, right? And now it's the same thing. So now what is happening is that investments are mainly, or should mainly, go towards building tools that make AI grow faster, and then building foundational models and making foundational models more lean and in general more able to predict correct responses. So of course, just as before with the dot-com bubble, you had investments in companies that weren't ready yet. They were too ahead. So they were already building marketplaces when there's no infrastructure for those marketplaces. They were already building B2B solutions. That's the last thing you have to do, right? You start off with potentially global markets, global technologies, and then as the market saturates, you end up going and investing on or building market-specific and country-specific tools, right? And B2B tools and stuff like that. So I think that we're seeing a trend that is very similar to what happened with the internet, where there is this new paradigm, there is this huge building opportunity, this opportunity to build cool products and cool services. However, there may be the risk of like people building or investing in something that is too premature or that cannot really function yet, right? just as it was with Google. Sorry, with the internet.
Yeah, it'll
But
be
yeah, you see
fascinating
this
to
like
see.
in investment funds that they are like the main investments that are being done are on infrastructure, are on like building these tools that help developers build RAG based applications or LLM based applications, or of course like all these open source either frameworks or even models themselves, like foundational models that are being extremely funded just to make the ecosystem easier to then end up developing really cool marketplaces or really cool B2B products.
So a little bit following on from that, you obviously live in a very different regulatory environment than we do in the US. Do you ever have any concerns about, regulation from the EU interfere with your business practices?
Yeah, of course. Like especially in this last month, there have been like so much push towards regulations, and I mean, it does make sense. Like I understand where they're coming from. I think that I am maybe I might be. I'm not too worried of like privacy concerns, simply because as long as data is used, because I am someone who uses data, I would prefer the world have more data rather than less data. So protecting data means that you can't build cool products. Like, I mean, I love the fact that Medium can recommend the correct articles to me. And if you didn't have the possibility of it actually reading and registering all my search history, it couldn't be able to do that, right? Same thing goes with Google and stuff. So yeah, so it does scare me, especially like, blocking what data model can be trained on is it is quite a concern. I do think that like we need systems to make LLMs not be able to be jailbreaked, of course. Like that's something that we don't want. We don't want an AI model to hand out data that is supposed to be private. But from there to go and say, oh no, but like to protect, copyrights, patents and stuff, you don't want to use the data to have a better product. I think that's to my eyes, it may be too much, right? I do understand where they're coming from. I do understand people's concerns. The thing is that like they want better products, but at the same time they're not ready to. They want better products. They want them free. They want them easy to use, but then they also want their data to be private. Like, how is this a sustainable business?
It's not sustainable. Yeah.
How is this going to work? Right? So that's what I think is might happen, and especially against the problem is that the EU is doing this, and then you have these countries like such as, for instance, America that don't have all these restrictions, and that means that Europe will just like miss out on this huge opportunity, and that's such a pity.
Yeah, it is a necessary. It's a very necessary thing to have regulations and place guardrails around certain areas, certain data elements.
And also it really depends on like what the regulation is about. Like I do agree that like AI should be regulated, but I don't really like the privacy concerns. So regulating, I mean, I understand the fact like a lot of jobs of like copywriters and people journalists, artists and stuff might be put into danger. I understand that, but at the same time, I think that there's so much more pressing things that should be regulated. For instance, the use and the computing power that a single person might hold. That should be something that should be regulated, because if a single person can, have the computing power of Google, then it can just wipe out anything. Like now we have the technology to harness that power, and so that's quite risky. But apart from that, like building better models, but like that should be our aim. And also people who are scared of like AI taking away all these jobs and stuff like that, especially like the creative jobs. I mean, did cars take away athletes' jobs? No, they didn't. Like people still run. It's not like people stopped running or jogging. They still run. It doesn't make sense. Like art and in general entertainment is something that humans resonate with when it's done by other humans. We have this thing that like, and some old one said this as well, of really caring about people, other people, and I think that will never go away. So I don't think that like there is a real risk of like athletes not being there like in 100 years, or artists not being there. Like they will find other forms of art, of course. Like for instance, the huge surge of money going into influencer marketing. So these influencers becoming the new artists of our age, right? But that doesn't mean that like art is dead. Of course, you might not like it, but that's not up to a single person to choose, right? Nowadays, we don't have opera that much anymore. It used to be like the main entertainment for people in like 200 years ago. But that doesn't mean that like we still don't have entertainment. We still don't have art.
Yep, totally agree.
Parallel that I'm really fond of drawing is, prior to the invention of the printing press, all across Europe, there were, tons of these alchemists trying to do various things, create the philosopher's stone, etc. And then with the invention of and they all had like their own, their own secret recipes that they kept hidden and away from others, right? And then with the invention of the printing press, there was concern from a lot of alchemists that like, it would destroy their discipline, that it would take away from the art of it. But instead what you see happening is alchemy became chemistry. It became like a legitimate field of study and actually a science. And so I think that we'll see something similar with language models, where we have a whole new way of producing and storing information, and the spread of that information is only going to it's only going to lead to more creation, because that's what humans like to do. We like to, somewhere deep within us, not every single one of us, but somewhere deep within us as a species, like we have a desire to build greatness. We have a desire to be something better. And I don't think that will ever change, even regardless of how good AI gets.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And the only concern that I have is that it's very and I feel this myself, like it's very human to hate having one of the skills we learned and we wasted so much time learning become useless, right? And so we want to attach that skill. Like, but I'm such a master at my craft. Like, if I were to write in Fortran, right, for instance, like that, I mean, when in my old company, actually, they used to program in Java, right? And I'm a Python developer. I can program in Java and JavaScript and stuff like that, but I mainly program in Python. And they were always saying, "Oh, well, but Python is so slow and stuff like that." And I'm like, well, actually, it depends on like the libraries that you're using. Most of what I write is actually run on C or C++, right? Or Fortran itself, like NumPy is also partially ran on Fortran. So that's not even true. But the thing is that you get so used to like the hardship of like doing something that when there's something much more easy to do, you don't want to do it. It's like when going back to the ancient Greeks, like when writing was invented, and then Socrates was like, "Oh, I'll never write." Like there's virtue in remembering stuff, of course, but there's more virtue in being able to write it down
and you'll remember way more.
Exactly. So it's like we're very attached to the skills we acquire, and when these skills become useless, then we have trouble in accepting the fact that our blood, sweat, and tears go wasted, right?
And I think it's easy to kind of get stagnant in the sense of like, no, I built this skill to do this thing, and that's what I'm going to use it for. But I think what we're seeing with AI, those people who are excelling are those who are able to say, I've put in all these hours. Now I don't need to necessarily go through the pain of coding every single line or whatever it is. I don't need to go through the effort of creating a baseline written draft for my paper, my novel, whatever it is. Like, you don't have to do that, but now that you have those skills, you can accelerate, you can do so much more now because you understand the workings of it. You understand what's going on under the hood and how to actually tailor what the AI gives you to be a masterpiece, whatever it is. So it's very difficult, but just like anything, you have to be willing to pivot, right? You have to be willing to say, okay, the world's changed. Am I just going to sit here and be like, oh, dang, I can't do what I've always done? Or are you going to say, what can I do now? Like, something new is out there that I can do. I think it's exciting, but not everyone does, like you're saying, and I get it. Like, I totally see that.
Yeah, I mean,
The fear of the unknown is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, it makes sense. Like, I too feel that. I was lucky in the sense that because I studied something in university that is completely useless. I studied mathematical logic, so I'm never going to use Gödel's theorems in life, probably, at least what I'm doing right now. But it taught me to enjoy learning for the experience itself and not necessarily because then I use that thing later on. And also just because when you learn stuff, you tend to then forget. So now I couldn't write the whole proof like of Gödel's incompleteness theorems. I used to be able to, it's like 100 pages, but I used to be able to do that. And now I probably could write like maybe 1 page, not even that.
Wow.
And so like, I think that like once you accept the fact that like learning is not just for the content but it's more for the experience itself, and like learning helps you learn more quickly, right? And so that should be the aim when you learn stuff. So I think that that's something that developers usually have more of than in other jobs, just because programmers are so used to like new technology coming out and having to learn that new thing.
That's
so
true.
I think like programmers are more used to like having to learn new stuff. And also like the other thing, there are two things that like programmers like as a transversal skill have more than other people, is that first you search like learn new stuff and then search better on the internet. And I've seen this like with other people, like they're so bad at searching on the internet, just like just scrolling through the search results and like choosing the correct thing and scrolling through the article or whatever and just finding the information. Just like we're so used to doing that, is that then you end up like really having a knack to do that. And
we're also already very good at copy pasting code.
Oh yeah,
The only thing that's changed is where we copy it from.
Yeah,
exactly. Just not even reading what the question was. Like when we used to go on Stack Overflow and you don't even read the question, you just go on the code and you see, okay, does this make sense? Kind of, let's copy and paste
throw
it. We'll shoot later, it's fine. yeah, exactly. But no, the only thing that does not scare me, but like what I'm noticing with myself is that I am becoming slightly more lazy in writing in general. So both writing natural language or also writing code, like when it doesn't tell me what to do, like the GitHub Copilot, I get slightly fed up. I'm like, oh, I have to write this myself. This is so boring. I think it that way. I just be like, oh, this is so cool. But now, like, I feel like I need to keep that level of technology. And so like kids just get so quickly used to new technology that it's incredible. Like there was like this Louis C.K. Joke where he's saying like people go into the first flight with Wi-Fi and like this like incredible technology connecting to satellites and then go back to Earth, and then they send it through like these underground cables, and it's incredible that you can like actually do this. And then the Wi-Fi went off, and then he was like, "Oh, what a drag!" You just get used so quickly to actually the new technologies that then if it doesn't work, then you're like, "Oh, this
life is so hard."
Like literally, like 30 minutes before you didn't even know the existence of this technology, and then you're already being fed up by it after 30 minutes. So yeah, I do think that like there is a risk of like we getting more lazy, like us getting more lazy in like how we
Mhm.
like on the things we do. And we are going to lose as a species certain abilities, but I think that that's something that is positive, not negative. I mean, that's how human evolution always worked. Like
Right.
we
Yep.
don't have hair on our well on our faces anymore, right? We lost it. We don't need it anymore. We don't have like claws.
Right.
In that sense, also like
Changes for the better. Yep.
yeah, evolution is not only physical evolution; it's also like societal evolution. There are a lot of things that skills that people used to have that we don't need anymore. It is quite sad sometimes, like when you think of like, oh, but people won't be writing essays that much anymore, and especially the English system is very essay based. So we write a lot of essays in maybe the US as well. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Like for instance, in Italy, it's not like that. But nowadays, I think that like essay writing will slowly die because that's not something that will make sense anymore to do
Yeah.
just because you have
Yeah.
an AI. Or maybe you will write essays, but with AI. So it
Right.
is like it is you can feel nostalgic. Even someone my age, quite young, already does feel like, oh yeah, at my time we used to write essays, but
Yeah.
that doesn't
No,
mean that
totally.
it's better.
Right.
I mean, I'll admit, like, there have been days when I get online and ChatGPT is down. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not getting any work done. I'll
You're
go
like,
to
hey,
Twitter.
it's a day off. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sweet.
Yeah. They're
No
taking
work
the day
today.
off, so am
ChatGPT is
I.
down.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Now it's been a while that ChatGPT hasn't gone down, but it used to go down quite often, and you'd be
Yeah.
just like, what am I supposed to do now?
Like, am I really going to take the time? Yeah.
Write
It's
code
so rude.
myself?
Am I really going to go back on Stack Overflow? Like, no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, Lodo, I'm curious. We've touched on all these different things. Obviously, you have this background in both AI in the short-term housing industry, like all these different parts. We always like to ask our guests if there's any piece of advice you could give to our listeners, people who maybe, specifically those who are not super technical, who are interested in AI, who maybe haven't totally delved into it yet and they're not sure how to. What advice would you give to that population?
Yeah, so the first thing one would need to understand is if they want to learn actually how to build stuff, or if they want to learn how to use products, right?
Yeah.
So that's very like there. It's a huge distinction, but I think that both things are quite important. Like even like the way I learn how to use products is different from how I learn how to build them, right? But let's take the first. So like let's say there's someone who wants to learn how to take advantage of this technology and actually build something cool, right? I think that the main piece of advice that I would give is that there's no rush, and you don't. I mean, of course, like the world is going very fast right now, but I tend to see like with people I mentor, the willingness of just like wanting to go and do the cool stuff with the strong models from the get-go. And while that could be satisfying to a certain extent, because you can actually build like prototypes quite quickly, but then if you have to build something that has to go into production, you'll never be able to do it that way. It's just impossible. So just take your time, realize that AI is not just prompt engineering. That's not how it works. You will have to dive deep into. I'm not saying like too much of mathematics. I mean, it is helpful, but you will need mathematics. You will need to understand what machine learning is, and yeah, just take your time and enjoy the journey. Enjoy learning these things.
Yeah.
the more you enjoy them, the more you internalize them, and the more that you can use this knowledge to then actually build something that can scale. To people who instead just want to use the tools, again, do not rush things. Do not think, oh well, like, and I am one of those people who actually, wants to try everything all the time. I need to try this new tool, this other thing, and it's really like my Instagram feed is always like these new tools, these new websites that come out, and I need to try everything. And again, it's better to really understand what you want AI to give you. Like, what are the tools that you're looking for your job, for your area of expertise, right? So what would I like AI to do for me? And then look for the tools that can help you achieve that goal. But it's always better to have a goal, and so to learn these tools with a goal in mind, rather than just to get all these hundreds of thousands of new tools coming out every day and just get trampled by all this innovation. And I don't think that really makes sense, because it is quite overwhelming, and you tend to not really appreciate the strength of the tool, and so you might use it like for a day, and then you get bored and you pass on to the next new thing. And so the attention span right now is very limited. If we tend to just go into the next new thing, you end up not actually using any tools. So it's not much what tools you use, but it's how you use them. And if you have a goal in mind, then it's more likely for you to use them well. So in just one word, I would say patience.
Yeah. I love that. Anything before we wrap up, Spencer? Anything else you wanted to ask that we haven't touched on?
No, I think we covered all my questions.
All right. Well, I'll wrap it up here. Lodo, thank you for coming on the AI Rebels podcast. For our listeners who want to follow your journey as you're moving through AI and doing all these things, what are the best platforms, handles, anything like that for people to follow you?
I think if they want to contact with me on LinkedIn or through the website itself, and that's what I endorse. I think that also I am about to come out with some Medium articles on exactly how I built the things I built, just because I think that it is quite interesting for other people to understand how to build these systems. But yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best way.
Okay, perfect.
Sweet. We'll link those in the video description.
Wonderful.
Great. Thanks,
Thank you so
Lodo.
much.